Chapter 1. God. Question 1. What is Sanatana Dharma? Is it the same as Hindu Dharma? The most ancient culture in the world is that of Bharat, then known as Bharatavarsha, located in Jambudvipa, the great island which stretched all the way from the Eastern Europe to the Far East Asia of today. The culture of this great land that bound everyone together in a way of life unique only to this land was called Sanatana Dharma, or simply put, the supreme eternal law. This was simply the law that guided and governed the material as well as spiritual well-being of all the people. The idea of divinity of all creation is unique only to Sanatana Dharma, which proclaims Aham Brahmasmi, I am divine, and Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, all is divine. However, with the passage of time, this very law came to be known as Hindu Dharma due to the naming of this land, which on the other side of the river Sindhu was called as the land of Hindus. Not until Persians named it Hindu, as they pronounced Sindhu as Hindu, that the then residents of this land came to be known as Hindus, and our way of life came to be known as Hindu Dharma. However, if we refer to our ancient texts, nowhere do we find the word Hindu being ascribed to us, albeit very recently, if one were to consider the timeless history of our ancient land. Question 2. What are the fundamental tenets of Sanatana Dharma? The fundamental premise in Sanatana Dharma is that all is divine, animate and inanimate. Brahman is the supreme god of Sanatana Dharma, who created the entire universe with all the movable and immovable entities on his own, like the spider that brings out the web from its stomach, lives in it, and swallows it back. The universe emanated from Brahman, is sustained by Brahman, and is ultimately dissolved by Brahman into his own self. Sanatana Dharma thus believes that all that which exists is Brahman or divine, as it is made by and made of Brahman. The other most important aspect of Sanatana Dharma, which naturally cascades down to Hindu Dharma, is the twin principles of karma, action and reaction, and punarjanma, reincarnation. The actions that we perform lead to consequences that are good, bad, or mixed ones, and we must experience them at some point of time. Much like Newton's third law of action and reaction, with the only difference being that some results are instantaneous, like satisfaction of thirst upon drinking cool water. Some are long drawn, like a seed sown that becomes a tree after a few years, and some are really long drawn, spanning several births. Therefore, reincarnation happens when the same jivātma must experience the leftover consequences of previous births by reincarnating in another form, in another time and place. That would explain why some children are born child prodigies without any formal training, or why some are born poor and some are born rich, some are born sick and some are born healthy, and so on. These twin principles of karma and punarjanma control or decide the family and circumstances in which one is born. 3. What is the concept of jivā? How is it different from paramātma? The supreme divinity, which is simple, the pure consciousness pervading every part of the creation, is known as Parabrahma or Paramātma, and the individual consciousness in all is referred to as jivātma or simply ātman. Think of a bucket of water immersed in a tank of water. The water in the bucket and in the tank is same, but known differently due to its presence in the different containers. 4. What is advaitā, and how is it different from dvaitā or viśiṣṭādvaitā? There are 3 approaches or 3 schools of philosophy which have been propounded to enable us to know the ātma tattva, atmic principles. These 3 are advaitā, viśiṣṭādvaitā, and dvaitā. Sri Adi Shankaracharya taught the philosophy of advaitā, non-dualism, which advocates the oneness of jivā, individual soul, and Brahman, cosmic soul, I am God. 3 centuries after Sri Adi Shankaracharya, Sri Ramanujacharya advocated the viśiṣṭādvaitā system of philosophy, which presupposed that jivā and Brahman are different. I am from God. 2 centuries after Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya arrived on the scene and propagated the dvaitā system of philosophy, emphasizing that there are in fact 3 concepts, namely dehatma bhava, body consciousness, jivātma bhava, individualized form of God, and paramātma bhava, the universalized soul or the supreme self. I am different from God. However, the fundamental principle underlying all the 3 schools of philosophy is one and the same, that is, ātma tattva. Upanishads declare that the entire universe is permeated by the same ātmic principle. That truth is contained in the Upanishadic dicta, ekātma sarva bhūtāntarātma, one ātma dwells in all beings. Ishvara sarva bhūtānam, God is the indweller of all beings. Ishavasyam idam sarvam, the entire universe is permeated by God. The rain, the water that flows into the river, and the water in the ocean are all one and only one. Everything is Brahman. Since every object in this universe is Brahman, nothing can be disregarded or ignored. This principle of Brahman is called divine in the English language. 5. So, who or what is God? God, a mystery to many, while a living reality to the rest, is best known as the infinite continuum that is the origin and end of all. God can be conceptualized as a creative force or energy without any attributes or qualities. Conversely, this energy is not mechanical or unconscious for the simple reason that the whole conscious universe with all its sentient beings has emerged from that energy. Therefore, God is a living, breathing, conscious, and intelligent being. Most religions of the world attempt to reason this out in great detail, albeit in their own ways. Perspectives, prophecies, and philosophies may differ, but one thing that is indisputably agreed upon by all is that God is the creator, the manager, and the ultimate dissolver of the universe. The term God can be thought of as an acronym. The expansion defines the chief functionality of God, which would be G for generator, O for organizer, and D for dissolver, which essentially is the same as creator, manager, and destroyer of the seen and unseen universe and all that it contains. Indian scriptures describe the same as srishti, creation, sthiti, sustenance, and laya, annihilation. For a very long time, scientists have disagreed with this concept of God as a conscious power. Nonetheless, with the new frontiers of science, including quantum mechanics, the theory of relativity, and the unified field theory, the idea of a field as the substratum of the entire universe is gaining rapid acceptance. This field consists of 4 kinds of forces: gravitational, electromagnetic, weak nuclear force, and strong nuclear force. It seems to have an intelligence of its own, leading to the creation of newer materials, their sustenance and destruction as well. This precise intelligence present in the universe is defined as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam by Taittiriya Upanishad. That is, this power has 3 attributes: existence, consciousness, and perpetuity. Scientists say that all matter is energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to the other. This is strikingly similar to the above 3-worded definition of God from the most ancient texts of the world, that it exists, it is intelligent, and it can never be created or destroyed. 6. How should one approach this concept of God? Know that God is the supreme divine principle that permeates all creation and has no attributes or form. At the same time, also be aware that the same formless divinity incarnates time and again as one amongst us to help each one experience the pure nature of love that divinity is all about. The best way to approach God is for God's sake. Love God for the sake of love and not for seeking any favors in return. Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 4 kinds of devotees approach me, all having done good deeds. The ones with distress, arthi; the ones with desires, artharthi; those who are curious to know the truth about God, jignasu; and finally, those discerning and wise ones, jnani. Amongst these, the jnanis are dearest to me. While the other 3 approach God for the sake of some personal gain, be it a relief from a problem, wealth and power, or knowledge of the ultimate truth, only the jnanis seek God for God's sake. They have no desires for anything and want God only for what God is. Not that the other approaches are wrong, but the approach that God loves most is when one seeks God simply for God's sake without any desires. In that desirelessness, one realizes the divinity within and without and finds ultimate fulfillment. 7. Which is true, God is in me or I am in God? God is in me or I am in God, neither of these statements are completely true. I am God is the truth. Dvaitā says, I am in God. Viśiṣṭādvaitā says, God is in me. But advaitā says, I am God. That is the ultimate truth. Is the wave in the ocean or is the ocean in the wave? Neither. Wave is the ocean. This nama rupa, name and form, are all temporary aberrations. Can the wave be separated from the ocean? Just as how rivers give up the name and form when they merge with the ocean, likewise, a self-realized one merges with Brahman by giving up his name and form. 8. How do human beings who have this body-mind complex really understand God who is beyond body and mind? God is an experiential reality and cannot be understood otherwise. The scriptures say, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, that from where words return and which cannot be grasped by the mind. Therefore, by senses or mind, God cannot be understood, and the experience of God cannot be described in words. Those who have experienced cannot describe in words, and those who describe in words haven't truly experienced. It is like a dumb person trying to explain the taste of a sweet. Thus, senses and mind which cannot experience or explain God are not the right instruments, just as a fork is not the right cutlery for a bowl of soup. The only way to know God is to be God. Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of God becomes God. However, one may be able to come closer to that experience within the heart as one becomes purer and desireless. When the mind is purged of all its selfishness and the heart is cleaned of all desires, within one's awareness one experiences God. When the dust is removed from the mirror and the mirror is uncovered, one can see one's reflection clearly. Likewise, when the mind is purified and illusions of the world are dropped, God reveals Himself within one's own awareness. 9. What is spirituality? What is the foundation of spirituality? Truly, spirituality is not complicated. Just letting God work through oneself is spirituality. When this becomes the way of life, it leads to human perfection. This perfection ultimately culminates in divinity. Spirituality is the quest for the experience of divinity and unity of all existence. When the individual sense of I melts away to become one with the collective consciousness of divinity, then all life becomes an expression of God's will, and thus all life becomes spiritual. 10. How can Sanātana dharma be applied practically? Practical application of Sanātana dharma to human societies is nothing but practice of universal love and selfless service. This alone can save today's world, which is torn by selfishness, greed, conflict, and violence. Only universal love and compassion can heal the wounds of mankind inflicted over a long period by the practice of wrong ideologies based on the selfishness of men wedded to materialism. Today, the need is an ideology which is rooted in selflessness that is possible only on the basis of spirituality. Such an ideology will unite the fragmented world into one family with a bond of universal love. This will help fight the common problems of poverty, ignorance, disease, and natural calamities. Most importantly, it delivers the world from the fear of war, which will in turn save enormous resources currently being spent on each nation's defense preparedness. These saved resources can be used to put an end to the material poverty of all the people in the world. In a global family bound by love, selfishness of a nation is as despicable as selfishness of an individual. It's time that the narrow-minded idea of each nation for itself is abandoned. All nations should march forward unitedly, hand in hand, with each nation being a valued member of the world family. That is the message of the Vedic sages. Yatra Vishwam Bhavati Ekanidam. May the whole world become one home. Rig Veda 4.10.1. 11. How can God, who is omnipresent, be understood and experienced by all and not just by an exclusive few? Though the scriptures say that God is all-pervading and that He permeates everything and everyone, yet the experience of God is not easily available to everyone everywhere. Definitely, the fault does not lie with God, but it does lie with those who are unable to experience divinity, though it exists everywhere. The attachments and the desires that one develops in one's life are like the cataracts that block the divine vision, which does not allow one to see divinity, though it's right in front of one's eyes. That experience of divinity comes from the heart. Those who are pure in their hearts, who are free from desires and attachments, only wish the welfare and good of others and bear hatred towards none. Only such people are capable of experiencing the divinity which exists everywhere, including within themselves. To experience that divinity is the purpose of life. For this, purity of mind is extremely important. Unless one has developed this purity of mind, which is the tool with which one perceives the world here and beyond, one cannot experience the presence of God. Thoughts, words, and action should all be good. If that happens, heart will be pure, and one will experience divinity inside, outside, and everywhere. Every thought is extremely important in maintaining purity and the steadiness of mind. Pure thoughts means thoughts that are divine in nature, thoughts that will elevate oneself and take one closer to God. However, if the thoughts are of selfish nature, that which cause negative feelings within oneself, that which disturb the peace and the rest of one's mind, then they have to be avoided. When such thoughts disturb the peace or the steadiness and purity of the mind, then what should one do? One should wait and allow the thoughts to pass on and the mind to settle down again. When some thoughts disturb, one should not be in a hurry to put those thoughts into words and the words into action. The mind has to be allowed to calm down. Thus, if one purifies one's mind and heart, fills it with pure love without any desires, without any attachments, one will also experience God's divinity, God's love everywhere, and will always be happy. 12. What is ātma vidyā? Ātma vidyā combines two words, ātma and vidyā. Vidyā means knowledge, but the difference between information and knowledge should also be understood. Vidyā is not mere information. Information is like a news bulletin. It is not knowledge. For example, Sangeeta Vidyā is the knowledge of music. If one simply recites the notes of an octave, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, It is not considered to be knowledge of music. To sing the notes sa re ga ma pa da ni sa to the correct tune is knowledge. Simply uttering the notes orally is not knowledge. It is just information. Whatever one learns must be absorbed and put into practice. Only then will it become vidyā. Ātma is the spiritual self, as opposed to the ego self. To know the eternal inner self within is ātma vidyā. The form of man consists of three bodies: the sthula, physical, sukshma, subtle, and ātma. This can be explained with the example of ice, water, and steam. All are made of the same element, water, but they are in different states. The physical form is like ice, which is solid. The subtle form is the mind, which is liquid, like water. And ātma is even more subtle, like steam or air, which is not visible. However, ātma is very much present and can be experienced. To know the ātma is to know who one really is. That is ātma vidyā. You say, my body, my handkerchief, and my pen. In other words, pen is different from me. The pen is mine, but I am not the pen. The handkerchief is mine, but I am not the handkerchief. Looking deeper, you can say, my mind, my thoughts. Therefore, mind and thoughts are objects that are mine, but they are not me. You are not the mind or the body. Then who are you? The indwelling, everlasting divinity is your true nature. Hence, by constantly remembering the truth that you are not the body, you are not the mind, but you are the ātma, which is Satchit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss, you will be able to establish yourself in the truth. In spite of knowing it all, why is it that one is not able to progress on the path of ātma vidyā? Well, one must have courage to progress on the right path. Swami Vivekananda said, spirituality is for the courageous, not for the weak-minded. Where does courage come from? With faith, one gets courage. If one does good deeds, God will look after everything should be one's firm conviction. With faith comes courage, and only then will one be able to engage in good deeds, which will lead one to attain ātma vidyā and put into practice to illumine one and all. 13. What should one pray to God? A good prayer would be, give me that ekabhavam, feeling of oneness. Give me that ātma bhavam, identification with the true self. Give me ātma darshanam, experience a glimpse of the true self, and ātma sakshatkaram, experience the oneness with the true self, so that I see only you in everything. Once you have become God, you will always be happy. How to become God? By removing all that which is not God in you, isn't it? Once God alone remains, one will be happy. God is Ananda Swarupa. He is happiness himself. But this Ananda comes only out of pure feelings, from God feelings. So one must aspire for this Ananda. How to aspire? Remove all the selfishness and ego, then one will remain divine. Divinity is Ananda, which is not dependent on the senses. Ananda is dependent on a state of mind. When the mind is absorbed in God, one is always in the state of Ananda. So, want to be happy permanently? Keep the mind on God always. If you think you are God, you will become God. Your destiny will be God. 14. When God is everywhere, why go to a temple? Why not pray at homes? Just like there are places where the mobile signal is strong and one can hear or speak easily and clearly, likewise, temples are like the mobile towers with strong signals where it's easier to speak to God and also hear Him speak to us. Just like the seed has the potential to grow into a huge tree, the sthala, place, has great potential and power. But it is the devotees who multiply this power by taking it along with them wherever they may go. Sunlight is everywhere. Put it through a lens and all the sunlight gets concentrated and it can even burn a piece of paper. Left to its own, the scattered sunlight cannot burn it. Likewise, God is everywhere, but He gets more focused and concentrated through the minds of the devotees, which are like the lens. All the focused devotion creates the power in the place. This is called sthala mahima, power of the place. Due to the devotees who come and think of God constantly, the place develops a kind of spiritual power.